And welcome to Real Talk Baseball. I am your host, Will Power, joined by John Murrow. I hope everyone enjoyed the All-Star break as much as we did. Today's lineup, we have injury report, trade deadline targets, and a new segment I call I Can't Believe What I Just Saw, all coming up on Real Talk Fantasy Baseball. All right, welcome back, everybody. Before we get started, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. We would appreciate that. Now, let's get started. Injury report.
I've fallen, and I can't get up. I've fallen, and I can't get up.
All right, so that was one of the things that I was telling you about, John. That's one of the new things that I have for Real Talk Fantasy Baseball, a little soundbite that I downloaded.
We would be silly, and I hate to break up because you're on a roll to start here, just a minute in, but we got to get this out of the way because I know you don't want to talk about it.
Oh my God!
No hitter.
Now you're gonna
a Dylan Cease no hitter with 62 points against you.
Yeah, of course you had to mention that right now, right?
Yeah, of course,
dude.
I'm not waiting on that. How often you see a no hitter?
I had my team all lined up to take out the guy in first place, a few weeks ago. And the guy I'm facing ends up having a 600-point week. And then now I have Bichette on the IL, Mookie Betts on the IL, Walker Buehler on the IL. Like I could go on and on. I think I counted 8 injuries that I have right now. And I'm facing the guy that is plus you.
I must be allergic to excuses.
I was going to say, are those real? I've never actually seen you sneeze in real life. But yeah, so I'm facing the guy that's 0-12 in our league. And I think I might actually give him his first win this week because of that no-hitter. 62 points from one pitcher in one day.
That's a dream.
Yeah.
0-12 or not.
Yeah, man, that's the luck of the draw, right? That's the thing about fantasy baseball. It's a gamble, and I went in this week thinking I was going to get the easy win. I didn't pick up any pitchers. I have all these injuries that I didn't have to, or that I didn't try to replace. I'm holding on to them because I'm hoping that Jose Miranda gets back by the end of the week and I can, slot him in my lineup. Bo Bichette's going to be out for a while. Mookie Betts is probably going to be out for a little while, but we do have 4 IL spots in our league. So I was hoping that I could at least stash those 4 and then all the other ones would come back by then. But I have a couple holes in my batting lineup. I got some pitchers that I'm not going to be able to have until probably at least next week, maybe even the week after. So I'm a little screwed, but you know what? They don't call me the fantasy baseball guru for nothing. I am definitely going to be making some moves for the weekend. And
got to do what you got to do. You got to make up 62 points.
This definitely puts a little damper on my week. I was actually projected to win by almost 100 points. And then I was projected to win by about 80. And now with this 62-point pitching no-hitter that, the other guy just had, now, I don't know. I'm going to have to pull something out of my ass. I actually did add Patrick Corbin that got me 18.5 points today. So that helped out a little bit. But
chip away.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see in 4 days, how I'm feeling towards the end of the week. And I will let everyone know if I ended up beating him or if he beat me next week on the show. All right, moving on to injury report. So Kyle Tucker resumed baseball activities this week that have progressed from, quote, light to intense. Saturday's update indicates that Tucker could be ready for a rehab assignment in the near future, but new reports suggest that we're still at least a month out for Tucker, and he is likely to return towards the end of August, beginning of September, as manager Bob Melvin stated. Fernando Tatis Jr. underwent an MRI that showed some healing that the Padres hoped for. He resumed playing catch and swinging a bat already, so he could move to facing live pitching soon and then progress to a rehab assignment shortly after that. While that means he may still be weeks away from returning, it's good to see that he's making some progress entering the second half. And John, if you ever want to interject, if you have something to say about any one of these players, go right ahead.
Yeah, the way my brain works is I was sad that Kyle Tucker got hurt because we were talking about him as a trade deadline, target potentially if the Astros, kind of gave in. So, I was kind of sad to see him go down because, anytime an actual superstar can get mentioned in a trade, it's exciting, but that didn't happen. But, good to see some of the stars coming back to the game too here shortly.
Yeah, it's been pretty slow. The trades. I feel like last year, like a lot of them started happening a little bit early, and by the time that the deadline actually like came around, it was kind of like quiet towards the end, Now it just seems like there's going to be a lot of trades more towards like closer to the deadline rather than, weeks leading up into it.
I think this is going to be it could be a huge longer conversation that we can hit on another day here, but I think this is obviously a product of the trade or the wild card format, and more wild card teams means more teams are in it, more injuries, so I think it's between injuries and, everyone's still thinking they have a chance that, why trade a guy unless you actually have zero chance. Teams like the Athletics, the White Sox, unless you're virtually eliminated, guys are probably not going to move nearly as much, and I can't really blame them.
I mean, imagine what the Tigers are going to get for Tarek Skubal if they move him. Imagine what the White Sox are
I'm prepared to talk about that.
Luis Robert and Garrett Crochet, the Angels, another team that could potentially be sellers. No one's in on Mike Trout, but as they have been in the past few seasons. The guy just stays injured, man. Actually, he's coming up on the injury report. And actually on Tuesday for the trade deadline, I believe it is. Yeah, it's this Tuesday coming up. We were thinking, Carlos had texted me and asked if we wanted to go live with him during the, the hour leading up to the trade deadline. So I don't know if you're up for that. We can always talk about that.
That'll be yes. I would say yes, because my buddy Breyer, who we may see on the podcast next week as a guest appearance. We're working on securing a contract for him for a 1-day contract. But my buddy Brian and I are going on a baseball trip next week because that's what I do. That's also where I get all these shirts. I am a Phillies fan, but I'm also a baseball fan. So any stadium I go, I generally end up with a shirt that turns into a workout shirt. I had this one on today. Kind of funny that it was the sign for the Cease no hitter. So we are starting our baseball trip next week, starting in Philadelphia, ironically against the Yankees, heading down to Baltimore from there on Tuesday night for the Blue Jays Orioles game on Wednesday. From there, we're heading down to Atlanta on Thursday for Atlanta versus the Reds.
Wow. A lot of baseball.
After Atlanta, we're heading up to Virginia for the day. And then on Saturday, so we have one off day on Friday. On Saturday, we are back to see the Nationals in DC. Then we go home. So
nice. 5
days, 4 stadiums. We're moving. Love baseball and can only do it with someone else that loves baseball as much as me. So it works out.
Yeah, and so you got to make sure you do all this before little baby Murrow comes along pretty soon, man. You only got a couple months. How's that going for you?
I mean, we had our baby moon out in Arizona, and that was a baseball centered trip too. So I think if wife keeps reminding me that there's a chance he doesn't love baseball, that's fine as long as he likes and appreciates it. That's all I ask.
Right. Yeah, I'm at that point right now. My son plays travel baseball, and he was telling me like he doesn't really want to play travel baseball next year, but he's 8, So I understand the commitment that it takes for travel baseball, and I don't really think that he understood that. It was like,
dude, it's so much,
dude. It was like 4 days a week at least, and at 8 years old, that's a lot of baseball, especially in Pennsylvania. In the Philadelphia area when it was like 95 degrees almost every single day. He had a doubleheader one day. Felt so bad for these kids, but hey, they got through it. They finished the season 16-3. We got a badass team, man. So hopefully the wins will persuade him to keep on playing, you know?
Yeah, and you talk about finishing the season. One guy who I would love to see finish the season would be Mike Trout. Do you have an injury report on him by chance?
Yeah, he'll be coming up. So moving on to Mookie Betts took light swings Monday for the first time since suffering a broken hand. Betts has already been taking some grounders, and it's a great sign that he's taken in the next step in recovery. He's currently 5 weeks into a projected 6 to 8 week absence. He's probably at least 2 weeks away at this point. An MRI cleared Max Fried of any soft tissue damage before he was placed on the 15-day IL with left forearm neuritis. Though anything forearm or elbow related for a pitcher always brings some level of concern, the fact that Fried avoided a ligament, tendon, or muscular injury following his MRI offers hope that he'll steer clear of an extended absence. At the same time, Snitker said that Fried is without an official timeline for a return from the IL and won't resume throwing until his symptoms have dissipated. Fried's injury first cropped up when he felt something in his forearm while warming up for the All-Star game last Tuesday, but the Southpaw was still able to make a one-inning appearance for relief in the National League. Now, I'm going to stop reading for a second because I thought this was so stupid, man, on Fried's part. You're obviously banged up a little bit. You have a history of forearm injuries. Your team is in shambles after losing Strider, Acuna. He didn't know that Albies was going to be gone also, but right? But I'm thinking in my head, like, how selfish can you be, man? I understand what an honor and privilege it is to play in the All-Star game, but you're putting your team's playoff chances at risk just so you could have your moment. I personally don't like the decision Fried made to pitch in the All-Star game, knowing that something was off, potential injury. If I'm Brian Snitker, I am fuming right now, dude. John, thoughts on Fried's decision to play through the injury in the All-Star game?
I'm torn because you got to listen to your body, number one. And sure, he said that's the first time he felt it. You know, he may have had that before in past years and said, all right, I've done it before and turned it into nothing. I don't want to say he's selfish in the sense because this is a guy who's also on a contract year. So he's got to earn his next contract. If he gets Tommy John, he's not getting anything more than a 1-year deal, if that. So it's there's more to it. You know, I don't think a player can really predict something like that. But at the same time, it's an all-star game that means absolutely nothing. So it's like if you have any kind of anything, yeah, you should probably just say, you know, if you're going to try it in the regular season when that matters. But yeah, an all-star game really means nothing. And kind of also leads, he's one of my favorite non-Phillies, but pitchers in baseball. But I do have to read real quick since we're talking injuries. You think our league is bad with my injuries? My current injuries in my ESPN league, real quick, just lost Christian Yelich. Just got Rengifo back. TJ Friedl's also injured. Kodai Senga, Max Fried, Verlander, Eduardo Rodriguez I've sat on all year, DeGrom, Jared Jones went down. I have 8 guys, and and this is a non-keeper league. So my strategy is you got to make the playoffs and be good when it really counts, kind of the same way the Phillies do.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of like where I'm at in our league also, because I have the second most points scored in the whole league, but I'm in 7th place. You know, I need to get into 6th. I need to get into 6th so that way at least I get my in the playoffs, and hopefully my team will be healed up by then. And, you know, all of them are going to go out and all my pitchers are going to throw no hitters and all my players are going to get grand slams every single day. So,
yep. Love the optimism.
Right. All right. Let's move on to your boy, Mike Trout. So Mike Trout reported to AAA Salt Lake on Monday to continue his rehab assignment. The Angels had planned for Trout to play at least 2 games at AAA before making a decision on his next steps. But the Angels announced Wednesday that Trout has been pulled off his rehab assignment and will return to Anaheim to undergo further evaluation after he felt soreness in his surgically repaired knee. So you wanted to talk about Mike Trout. Let's talk about Mike Trout.
What is Mike Trout's current fantasy and real baseball trade value?
I don't think he has any right now, man.
I tried to trade for him in fantasy like 2 weeks ago, and the guy said, I've sat on him this long. There's really not much unless you blow me away with an offer that, you know, I've been this patient. Isn't that when someone's values this low the best time to strike, though? You know, even if he does,
Yeah.
depending on your situation.
Best time to buy, but his production has also went way down, in the last couple years. He's batting like 260 when he is healthy. He's not the 320 with 50 home run potential guy anymore. So even if he is on your team, he's probably going to be one of the better outfielders on your team, but that doesn't really stay much because a lot of outfielders are just kind of like mediocre. There's 50 other outfielders that I probably have on my team before I go for Mike Trout, unless I can.
How many?
50.
50?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Name
because
them all right now. Go. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
no, the problem is I just can't trust this guy to stay healthy. He'll be on my team for 2 weeks, and I need you for the playoffs, man. Like George Springer's another one that I don't like to have on my team because I know his knee is going to get messed up. Carlos Correa is another one because plantar fasciitis just kind of comes out of nowhere for him, and then he's in a walking boot for who knows how long. There's a lot of injury-prone players that I'm just like, no, thank you. I don't want any part of you.
Byron Buxton, Royce Lewis.
Dude, exactly. Now, Royce Lewis is a little bit different for me because every single time that guy steps on the field, he does something. He's a
which is like every lunar eclipse that he's healthy.
Yeah, that is a problem. But I feel like he's young enough to eventually he can hopefully figure it out how to stay healthy. Maybe stop playing the field. Maybe they can just make him a DH because that's his bread and butter. He's one of the best hitters in the league, dude.
They already did that with Buxton, though. You can't have too many of those guys.
I know. It sucks. But Buxton's trash anyway. I mean, if the only reason why I would roster Byron Buxton is if it's a 15-team or deeper. Anything less than that, a 12-team league, unless I have 5 outfielders, that's probably the only leagues that I would be rostering Byron Buxton. A few years ago, it was a little different because he had so much upside with power and speed, and now it's he's lucky to hit 250 with 15 home runs, and I don't think he's a stolen base threat anymore.
I'm ill prepared for a Byron Buxton segment here, but he is hitting 278 with 11 homers. It's not like in an 833 OPS. So he's having a really good year.
Yeah, I need more than just this small sample size from Byron Buxton. If he was available on the waiver wire and I see he's hot, I'll pick him up if I need an outfielder, but if someone else is out there on the waiver wire that's also like Juan Yepez, if I see Juan Yepez out there, first base, I think first base and outfield eligibility, I'm probably picking up Juan Yepez over Byron Buxton because I've seen Juan Yepez be great in the past before when he was with the Cardinals, and now he has this hit streak that he's going on now again. And I really like Juan Yepez. So little plug right there, Juan Yepez, go ahead and pick that guy up if you need a first baseman or an outfielder. And we are actually going to talk about Juan Yepez a little bit later because of some outfield injuries. Now, moving on to Josh Young. He will begin a rehab assignment on Friday at AA Frisco. Young had previously played in 4 rehab games with AAA Round Rock from June 16th to the 20th, only to be pulled off the minor league assignment when he experienced renewed soreness in his surgically repaired wrist. Just over a month later, Young is ready for game action again after he was able to make a quick progress through his hitting progression over the past week. He'll presumably remain on his rehab assignment at least through the weekend before the Rangers assess whether he's ready to return from the 60-day injured list. Young should eventually settle back in as the Rangers' everyday third baseman, but he could be eased back in from the IL as a designated hitter. So that's going to help out a little bit. You don't have to worry about him re-injuring himself on the field. The Yankees will likely decide on a date for Giancarlo Stanton's return from the 10-day injured list. By the end of next week, Stanton ran the bases on the field Friday in his most recent step forward, recovering from a strained left hamstring. Manager Aaron Boone said Saturday that Stanton, quote, is in a pretty good spot in terms of progress and indicated that a return is a matter of building stamina. The Yankees haven't determined whether Stanton will go on a rehab assignment. If he forgoes that option, he could be back in New York lineup at some point during their series in Boston that begins Friday, which is tomorrow. So, Stanton, if he is back in lineups, if you've been sitting on him this long, are you starting Stanton right when he comes back?
Me personally, if I had Stanton, I'm actually more concerned that Stanton and or Verdugo is going to lose their starting position here, because Jason Dominguez is back. He's healthy. And before he got hurt, he's called the Martian for a reason. So, yeah, I'd probably start Stanton, but I wouldn't, rely on him, if you will. I think Jason Dominguez, it's Jason Dominguez season. I think Alex Verdugo is probably going to be the one that loses his full-time starting job over Stanton just because of dollar figures and everything else. But we'll see. There's definitely, I think, a little bit higher ceiling for Stanton, knowing that what he can do and has done in that Yankee lineup when he's healthy. If you move him to DH, put Jason Dominguez out in the outfield over Verdugo and put that bat in the lineup, Yankees could be back.
Stanton's just been very shaky, ever since he joined the Yankees. He is, a long time streaky. He's a long time away from his MVP season when he was on the Marlins, and I can't trust Giancarlo Stanton. I wouldn't be surprised if we went 0 for 4 with 4 Ks on, his first day back, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he had 2 home runs in his first game back. That's the type of player that he is. Either he's great or he's absolutely trash, and it's going to be like that every single day. So in a categories league, I'm definitely starting him because he could potentially get me a couple home runs, some RBIs, but in a points league, if I can't afford those -4 points from those 4 strikeouts that he could potentially give me, I think I might sit him if I have a different outfielder or, a different player that I could slot in my lineup instead of Stanton. I might even just sit on him and let him sit in my IL if he is in an IL spot for a little while until I actually see some production. That way I can at least, kind of weigh my options to potentially drop a player to activate him or even drop Stanton. I wouldn't be opposed to dropping Giancarlo Stanton if he comes back and he's just trash again.
Yeah, I think he's in the Mike Trout category now where his best days are certainly behind him. And, you can't still have those same 2018 expectations or, whatever year it was that he had those 3,000 home runs.
Right.
But yeah, I still like Stanton for what he is, just because strictly, anybody in a lineup with Judge, Soto, has a good shot at getting RBI. So,
yep. Bronx Bombers. All right, so Luis Rengifo returned from the injured list prior to Tuesday's game against the Mariners. Rengifo has been out since July 4th with wrist inflammation. With Anthony Rendon back at third, Rengifo figures to play most of his time at second base after returning. That could put Brandon Drury on the bench against a fair number of righties. Keston Hiura's roster spot is most likely in danger. The Mets are expecting to get about 5 innings and 85 pitches out of Kodai Senga in his season debut, which is scheduled for Friday, tomorrow, against Atlanta. Senga built up to 79 pitches in his final rehab start last Saturday for AAA Syracuse, so an 85-pitch workload may be a conservative estimate. Senga has missed the entire season so far due to arm issues that first cropped up in late February, and he threw one more bullpen session Tuesday to get checked out before the Mets activate him from the 60-day injured list and lock him in for Friday's start. So keep an eye on Kodai Senga if you are a Senga owner. Jared Jones threw off flat ground up to 120 feet Monday. Jones has started a throwing progression just under 3 weeks after landing on the injured list with a grade 2 right lat strain. While it's an encouraging sign that the 22-year-old is throwing again, Jones is expected to ramp up slowly with his long-term health in mind. A clearer target date for Jones' return from the IL probably won't be known until he reaches the point in his rehab where he's facing live hitters. But fantasy managers should prepare for his absence to stretch into August at the very least. Bad news for John.
Yeah, I'd say the worst part is that, yeah, they're not going to push him. I think he was doing great things, and then the day I traded for him, he got hurt.
It's Pittsburgh, it's the same reason why they pulled Paul Skeens out of his no-hitter, because they're thinking about these these arms longevity, past 2024. They're not in a playoff run, so they're going to be cautious. Ryan Pepio is expected to be released from a New York City hospital next Monday and will fly back to Florida to continue receiving treatment on his injured knee. Pepio landed on the 15-day IL last Sunday with an infection in his left knee, but Kevin Cash added Monday that while Pepio has some residual soreness, he's walking and moving around fine. Pepio will be eligible for activation August 3rd and looks to have a shot to be back by that date or shortly after. Devin Williams, a name we haven't heard in a while, is expected to make a minor league rehab appearance at AAA Nashville on Saturday. Williams looks fully recovered from the stress fractures in his back and is only expected to need another outing or two before he's deemed ready to return to the Brewers bullpen. Trevor McGill has performed very well in his absence, so it'll be interesting to see if the Brewers throw Williams back into the closer role right away. Either way, in my opinion, I think that Williams is easily a must-roster player. Most leagues now have saves and holds with like equal point systems, or maybe you have saves and holds as like a specific category. So it doesn't matter whether you get a save or a hold; it's still going to help you in that specific category. So I think Devin Williams is a must roster player either way. The Dodgers activated Tyler Glasnow from the 10-day IL to face the Giants yesterday. The Dodgers ace went 5 innings, allowing 2 earned runs on 4 hits and 4 walks while striking out 4. John, any concern about Tyler Glasnow going forward?
No, he's on my team, and he is available for trade, so 0 concerns at all. Just kidding. No, I am a little bit concerned. I mean, I think that's another guy you got to monitor, just his usage, of course. I think he's got nasty stuff. They have a good firm hold on the division, if you will. You don't want to celebrate too early like you did in fantasy on a Monday. But, I think they're going to continue to monitor his usage too. Maybe he gets a couple starts that are skipped here and there. So I think that's more my big concern, not necessarily his stuff and his numbers, but more how are they going to use him down the stretch to keep him healthy for when they really need him.
Yeah. Well, the Dodgers also just called up River Ryan to make some spot starts. I believe he's starting on Saturday also. So I would imagine that they would keep him in the rotation at least until Walker Buehler gets back, So I don't know if that means 5-man rotation or 6-man rotation because you still have Yamamoto out. So it's going to be interesting to see what Dave Roberts ultimately decides to do. Honestly, if I'm in his position, I'm trying to rest Tyler Glasnow as much as possible because as the name suggests, he's made of glass now, and he cannot stay healthy in a 5-man rotation. Was that a little too corny for you, John?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
All right, moving on to another Dodger. Clayton Kershaw was activated from the 60-day injured list to start today's game against the Giants. Kershaw experienced a couple of setbacks in his recovery from off-season shoulder surgery that pushed back his 2024 debut, but he checked out fine upon making 2 minor league rehab starts this month, allowing 3 runs on 6 hits and 1 walk with 7 strikeouts across 7 innings. He got up to 67 pitches in his most recent outing Friday with AAA Oklahoma City, so it's expected he'll be on some sort of pitch count later tonight. So, John, are you starting Clayton Kershaw in his 2024 season debut, or are you going to play it safe and keep him on your bench for now?
You have to start him. So Kershaw is the guy who, until he shows me he can't, you can't say he can't, and last year, every year, it's just like, all right, when's this guy going to fall off a cliff? When's this guy? And 13-5 with a 2.46 ERA last year. So Father Time will catch up. But especially his first start back, absolutely starting him. Even if it's 4 or 5 innings, he might still get you 5-6 Ks. So yes to Clayton Kershaw. Yes, same thing that probably this is going to be a common trend for your Dodgers, but they're going to monitor everyone's usage. So yeah, I know you're excited to talk Kershaw, so I'll give you the stage here.
Well, that's
you're blushing already. You're literally blushing.
The game's actually on right now, so I would just in case people are wondering, we are recording right now at 4:00 in the afternoon East Coast time. So the Dodger game is about to start right now if it hasn't started already. But we still have about a half hour before the show. So before the show ends. So I still want to try to get through all these injuries before that time. So I'll save my Kershaw talk for next week. How about that? That way we can talk about what happened in his start, and we'll probably talk about Dylan Cease a little bit more next week. Also, I want to kind of do a little dive into his start. See what like how he was able to get this no hitter, unfortunately. But all right, moving on. Max Muncy was shut down from swinging on July 6th, but has resumed swinging a bat by taking soft toss last Thursday. While a firm timetable for return hasn't been established, Muncy has been ruled out at least until August, per manager Dave Roberts. Considering the 33-year-old hasn't played since May, he'll likely require a lengthy rehab assignment before being activated from the injured list. Tristan Casas could be close to turning a corner in his recovery. Alex Cora was relaying what he was told by a trainer and didn't offer any details, but it's an encouraging update after Cora indicated over the weekend that Casas was not close to beginning a rehab assignment. A return timeline still appears very much up in the air for the first baseman, who has been sidelined since late April with a strain and torn cartilage in his left rib cage. So, John, which corner outfielder would you look to add if they're both available? Max Muncy or Tristan Casas?
Corner infielder. I just gave up on Tristan Casas, so it's tough. Just because I literally couldn't afford to keep him anymore with all my injuries. But I would probably say Tristan Casas just because I like the ceiling better. Max Muncy's in a different stage in his career, just is what it is. And I don't know. I would be weary of having Casas in my lineup, despite even if he is healthy, because that was a pretty tough injury. I mean, this guy wasn't swinging a bat for months because of his ribs. So if he's not twisting and turning and getting that same power that, coming into this year, I had huge hopes for him. And that's not an easy injury, obviously, to return from, because that was back in April. And here we are approaching August. So I'd probably still trend towards Casas, but if it came to it, I think either option would be a good boost for your lineup down the stretch.
I think I'm going on the other side. I think Boston's going to be a little more cautious with Casas. That was a little tongue twister. I think the Dodgers are going to have Muncy in their lineup every single day, versus Casas that, they could potentially have other guys playing first base, and they want to save him for the future. He's so young, whereas Muncy, he has like another year, I think, on his contract with the Dodgers, and I think they want to try to like milk every ounce of baseball that he has left in him, especially when they're in this like playoff run right now where they want to go to the World Series and they want Max Muncy right. So they're going to give him the amount of at-bats that he's going to need to try to get right before playoffs. And I think that's going to help a lot. Just slotting Max Muncy back in there, hitting fourth or fifth in the Dodgers lineup, like that's going to be a lot of runs scored, a lot of RBIs. And with Muncy's power potential, I'm going to say a lot of home runs also. So I think they're about the same for me in a redraft league. If we're talking keeper league, I'm definitely going Casas over Muncy because I think Muncy's getting towards the end of his career. I like Casas' upside a little bit more though.
Sure.
All right, Merrill Kelly is expected to throw 2 more bullpen sessions before facing live hitters. Kelly is slated to throw off the bump Saturday and is expected to require 1 additional bullpen session before being cleared to face live hitters. Diamondbacks manager Torey Lovullo said Friday that Kelly is feeling really, really good. Kelly has been limited to just 4 starts this season with a right shoulder strain and will need to ramp things back up, but the recent reports on his progress have been positive. Walker Buehler will make a minor league rehab start at AAA Oklahoma City on Friday. Buehler has been on the injured list since June 19th due to inflammation in his right hip. He has long been fully recovered from the injury, though, and has spent the past few weeks working on his mechanics at Cressy Sports Performance in Florida, and then facing live hitters in Kentucky. He rejoined the Dodgers this week to work with their staff, and they were encouraged by what they saw in his bullpen session on Tuesday. He's expected to make 2 rehab starts at AAA OKC before rejoining the Dodgers rotation. Now, this actually is some really good news for Walker Buehler owners because you don't have to worry about him going on rehab assignments, to get stretched out to try to work his way up, pitch count and all that, because he's already been doing that. He's been fully healed from his injury for at least a couple weeks now, and he's been working more on mechanics. They've kept him on the IL for now to work on his mechanics coming back from that surgery. So I think this is a good sign. I don't want to say that it was like a good decision from the Dodgers staff, because it's kind of like that phantom IL stint that a lot of people are talking about, that many teams in the past have used before. So apparently it was a legitimate injury, but he didn't necessarily need to be out for this long. It gave them the excuse to keep him out this long, so that way he can kind of like work on his stuff.
Now, I will always give you my true, honest opinion, whether it's my favorite team, the Phillies, or not. And some of my opinions probably come across biased as a Philadelphia fan, but it's just the fact that they are the best team in baseball record-wise this year. So I need your true opinion. Do you actually think Walker Buehler is going to come back and give you ace level stuff like we've seen in the past, or are you tampering expectations here?
Honestly, I've never really seen Walker Buehler as an ace.
I have.
I don't think he has the right pitch arsenal actually, I can't say never, because when he was striking out 10 dudes in a game, that's when I saw Walker Buehler that had some ace potential. But
he was Spencer Strider before Spencer Strider was Spencer Strider.
Well, Walker Buehler changed up his style, though. He's not striking out guys left and right like he used to. There was like 250 strikeout potential for the season, where now it's like maybe a strikeout per inning or even a little bit less. He's not necessarily going for the strikeout anymore. He's trying to keep his pitch count down. And I don't know if that was because he needed the surgery and he was trying to like push off the surgery, as long as he could. Maybe now that he's fully recovered, he's like, all right, well, my elbow's good now, so I'm going to go ahead and try to strike everyone out just like I did after my first Tommy John surgery, because this is his second surgery. I think that's remained to be seen, and I think we're going to find out probably within the next month or so, because Walker Buehler is fully recovered, and I think we'll see him back in a Dodgers uniform within the next 2 weeks. Probably, which is really good for my fantasy lineup, because that's one of my injured players. So come back soon. And
he does have a 5.84 ERA, so maybe it's not that good for you.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. The mechanics actually do have a lot to do. You were a pitcher, right? So
Sure,
all about that. So one little tiny mistake in your mechanics, and it could throw your game all off. One little tiny adjustment can give you an extra 3 inches drop on your slider. There's a lot of different things that could happen. The good thing is for Walker Buehler, he has a lot of backup, and he has a lot of guys that he can talk to that have been in the same situation that he's currently in, coming back from injury, like Tyler Glasnow. So, and his buddy Clayton Kershaw, coming back from injury as well.
We've been chatting a lot, man. We're 40 minutes in here almost.
I know, man. I got to get through this. All right,
I'm good with it. I'm good till 5, but I know we have limits here.
Yeah. All right. Joe Musgrove threw 30 pitches in a bullpen session Saturday. The bullpen was Musgrove's second since he went on the injured list June 1st. Musgrove threw almost exclusively fastballs in his first session Wednesday and plans to increase his intensity as throwing sessions progress. Padres manager Mike Shildt said Saturday that Musgrove is clearly getting closer to a return, though a target date for his activation hasn't been established. Jose Miranda could be cleared to begin a rehab assignment Tuesday at AAA St. Paul, Minnesota. Miranda has progressed nicely of late and in his recovery from lower back tightness, and his clearance for game action seems likely very soon. If all goes well, he's likely to need just a couple of rehab games before rejoining the Twins ahead of Friday's game in Detroit. With Royce Lewis also tracking toward a return Friday to take over at third base, Miranda could see most of his starts at designated hitter. Starling Marte played catch and hit off a tee on Friday. The Mets have been taking it slowly with Marte's recovery from a right knee contusion that sidelined him since June 22nd. The team will continue to ease him back into action try to avoid any setbacks for the often injured veteran who hasn't played more than 120 games in a season since 2019. And now for your boy and mine, because we have been in different leagues, Jacob deGrom threw a 40-pitch bullpen session on Tuesday. deGrom has multiple steps left before he takes the mound in a regular season game, and his next step will be recovering without any pain. He said he hasn't had any problems with bouncing back for nearly 2 weeks. So if that were to continue, he would be on a rehab assignment somewhere this weekend. And it would seem as though deGrom won't be ready for his season debut until late August at the earliest. And that's just in time for fantasy playoffs. And when Jacob deGrom is on the mound, you start him no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Nolan Jones participated in batting practice ahead of last Friday's game against the Giants. Jones remains without a return timeline after landing on the injured list Saturday due to a lower back strain, though his return to batting practice is a sign that he's trending in the right direction. While the 26-year-old remains on the shelf, Sam Hilliard and Sean Bouchard will continue to split reps in left field. Jose Luzardo has been participating in bike workouts and working on forearm and shoulder strengthening in recent weeks. While Luzardo hasn't been shut down from physical activity since landing on the injured list June 22nd with a lumbar stress reaction, he's yet to resume throwing after nearly a month. The Marlins transferred him to a 60-day IL a day after placing him on the 15-day IL. So the club is already preparing for his absence to extend into the second half of August. A clearer target date for his return won't be available until he's ready to begin a minor league rehab assignment. Evan Carter could begin a minor league rehab assignment by the end of next week. Fellow rehabbing slugger Josh Young is set to begin a minor league rehab assignment at AA Frisco on Friday, and Carter is believed to be about a week behind Young in his recovery. The 21-year-old outfielder has been shelved since the end of May due to a back sprain. Jordan Montgomery returned from the 15-day injured list to start Tuesday against Kansas City. Montgomery has been working his way back since experiencing right knee soreness June 29th and landing on the IL a few days later. The left-hander threw a string of bullpen sessions and simulated games in preparation for Tuesday's start. Robbie Ray was activated from the 60-day injured list to start Wednesday's game against the Dodgers. As expected, Ray had been cleared to return during San Francisco's upcoming series against the Dodgers after recovering from Tommy John surgery. And I don't know if you took a look at his line score, but he actually looked pretty good, man. 5 innings, 1 earned run on 0 hits, 2 walks, 2 hit by pitches, and 8 strikeouts at the Dodgers. Now, you kind of figured that the walks and the hit by pitches are just always going to be there for Robbie Ray because he is effectively wild. But, John, thoughts on Robbie Ray going forward?
Robbie Ray was a Cy Young a couple years ago. So, sneaky, quiet guy, consistent, always, has the potential to go deep into games, get you a couple wins here and there. So I like Robbie Ray. He'd be a good, if he's available, snag him immediately.
Yep, I got him in one league. I was looking around in all 5 of my leagues, and it looks like he was only available in one, but I did snag him in that one.
I drafted him and Jacob deGrom, and I think he was originally supposed to come back earlier summer, late spring or so, and then got pushed back. So I couldn't hold on to him this long, but had to choose one of the two, and I took deGrom.
Yeah, good choice. Cody Bellinger took swings on the field and threw on Wednesday. Bellinger has been on the IL with a fractured middle finger since July 11th, so he's trending to the 2 to 4 week timeline that was expected. While there still isn't a specific date for his return, Craig Counsell said Bellinger could come off the IL during the Cubs' upcoming road trip. Justin Verlander, another pitcher you mentioned earlier, threw 40 pitches during a bullpen session Saturday. Verlander is recovering from a neck injury that sidelined him since June 18th, but he's thrown a couple of bullpen sessions in the last week and was stretched out to 40 pitches on Saturday. At this point, it's unclear if the 41-year-old will require a minor league rehab stint. I would think he would need it, considering he hasn't been that great to begin the season anyway. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Justin Verlander?
I think he might have been injured the whole time. Who knows? I think, Justin Verlander is a guy who's established enough in this league to say whether he wants to go or not. So, and managers, coaches, everyone's just got to listen and say, all right, let the old dog go to town and do whatever he wants. So if he wants to go to, feel things out in AAA and do a rehab start, he will. If he says, I'm good, I'm as ready as I'll be, the Astros need him now. So I wouldn't be surprised if he skipped.
All right. now we're getting into the bad news. So the Mariners placed Julio Rodriguez on the 10-day IL Tuesday with a right ankle sprain. Rodriguez suffered the injury after crashing into the outfield wall last Sunday. Mariners general manager Justin Hollander said Wednesday that Rodriguez will be reevaluated around August 1st. Rodriguez will be eligible to return from the 10-day IL August 1st, but the Mariners are off that day before just starting a 3-game series against the Phillies on August 2nd. Based on Hollander's comments, Rodriguez doesn't sound like he'll be able to take part in baseball activities over the next 10 days before he's reevaluated. So the 23-year-old would seem to be unlikely cleared for the series with the Phillies. Good news for you. Rodriguez was diagnosed with the right high ankle sprain after suffering the injury while leaping into the outfield wall in Sunday's 6-4 win over the Astros. Victor Robles has drawn 3 starts in center field in Rodriguez's stead. Christian Yelich saw a spine specialist today to discuss the next steps in his recovery, with season-ending surgery representing one possibility. Yelich's on-again, off-again back injury flared up Tuesday as he was placed on the 10-day IL Wednesday. Season-ending surgery would be a worst-case scenario, and it's unclear at this point if the likelihood of an operation would be. But the fact that it's even on the table is concerning, and at the very least, Yelich should be expected to spend more than the minimum 10 days on the shelf. So let's look at some outfield replacement options if you lost J-Rod or Christian Yelich. So I wanted to put the names up here so that way you kind of have you have them on the screen. But I did send you the names, so hopefully you have them in front of you. We have Max Schumann, second base, shortstop, and outfield eligible, 42% rostered, batting .344 with a .988 OPS and 3 home runs and 5 stolen bases in the last 30 days. Juan Yepez, who I mentioned earlier, first base and outfield eligible, 27% rostered, currently slashing an eye-popping .390, .468, and .610 with 6 RBI and 8 runs scored across 47 plate appearances as he continues to make a case for an everyday role. A name we haven't heard in a while, Jeff McNeil, second base and outfield eligible, 17% rostered, batting .321 with an 11.26 OPS and 4 home runs in the last 2 weeks. Joe Adell, outfield eligible, 14% rostered, batting .360 with a 1,004 OPS, 1 homer, and 3 stolen bases in the last 2 weeks. And last, we have Gavin Lux, second base and outfield eligible, 13% rostered, batting .345 with a 1,091 OPS, 3 home runs, and 1 stolen base in the last 2 weeks. So, John, how do you rank these outfielders?
I will start with least favorite to favorite. I'll go quick just for sake of time here. I would say Gavin Lux. I'm done with Gavin Lux. I had a lot of faith in him when he was a rookie, and he's just shown me really a whole lot of nothing over these past 4 or 5 years. I'm out on Gavin Lux. So he's 5. Let's go with Joe Adell 4, Jeff McNeil 3, Schumann 2, and Yepez 1.
Really? I'm surprised you actually went Yepez 1. I thought you were going to go Schumann 1.
Schumann, Schumann on the Athletics, who are about to get decimated, losing Brent Rooker and anything that is of value, is that lineup's just going to be horrendous here this time next week, and what's already a pretty shitty lineup.
I don't know. Lately, they've been on fire, man. All right, so I'm gonna go Schumann number 1, Yepez 2, Lux 3, Adell 4, and McNeil 5. McNeil, I know he's the batting champ from a few years ago, but I just haven't seen anything from him. You know, at least Lux, you can say, oh, he was injured all last season. He didn't play at all. So a few months of him kind of getting back into the swing of things. He was a top prospect at one point in time, same thing with Joe Adell, but I just can't trust Joe Adell either. He's just a little too streaky. So I'm actually out on McNeil, Adell, and Lux. The only ones that I'm really interested in is Juan Yepez and Schumann. I think those are the only 2 that are actually, potentially helping your lineup. I think the other guys are just kind of going to be like a wash, like maybe just kind of like taking up a lineup spot, and that's about it. And then you'll end up dropping them in a week because they just went 0 for 16 with 14 strikeouts or something.
I'll make a quick argument for Jeff McNeil only because I was most prepared to talk about him more than anyone, simply because the Mets are a team. I'm not afraid of the Mets, but they're a team that is trending in the right direction. And Jeff McNeil is also trending in the right direction. He's rose his average from 213 on July 2nd to 228 today. Woohoo. But, trending in the right direction. We know he can hit. So I would take a flyer on him too. But he has second base and outfielder eligibility. So if you need to knock out a Yelich and Ozzie Albies replacement in one shot, go for it. I'd still take a chance on him. Can't rely on him though.
All right. So let's move on to 3 middle infielders hit the IL in recent days. The Braves placed second baseman Ozzie Albies on the 10-day IL with a fractured left wrist. Albies is expected to miss 8 weeks. He was hitting .258 with 8 home runs, 46 RBI, 47 runs scored, and 8 stolen bases. Albies' slug percentage, who has been at least .488 in the last two of the last 3 years, but had just a .407 slug percentage this year. A major wrist injury will almost definitely decrease the power output we can expect from Albies in the future. Carlos Correa, who landed on the IL with plantar fasciitis, hopes to get out of his walking boot in a few days. Correa isn't expecting this to be a lengthy absence, though we'll see how he feels once the boot is off. August 2nd is probably the earliest he'll be back, but this injury is something Correa has been dealing with for years now and has sidelined him multiple times. This really sucks for Correa owners that have been enjoying the best season of his career since the controversial 2017 season.
Had to do it.
I had to do it.
Yeah, had to do it.
Whenever I see a door open, I have to walk through it, man. And Bichette is dealing with a moderate calf strain and is expected to miss multiple weeks. It sounds like the 26-year-old shortstop is going to require longer than just the minimum stint on the IL this time around, as the Blue Jays want to make sure he gets right before bringing him back. That should give Leo Jimenez an opportunity to establish himself as an everyday role for the time being, which no one really cares about Leo Jimenez, at least for now. All right, so 3 middle infielders without a timetable to return. Let's look at some replacement options off the waiver wire. Zach Neto, shortstop eligible, 49% rostered, batting .412 with an 1193 OPS, 2 home runs, and 2 stolen bases in the last 2 weeks. Max Schumann, again, second base, shortstop, and outfield eligible, 42% rostered, batting .344 with a 988 OPS and 3 home runs and 5 stolen bases in the last 30 days. Xavier Edwards, second base and shortstop eligible, 14% rostered, batting .362 with an 853 OPS and 0 home runs, 4 stolen bases in the last 30 days. Jose Iglesias, second base and third base eligible, 14% rostered, batting .379 with a 1,091 OPS, 3 home runs, and 1 stolen base in the last 30 days. Gavin Lux, again, second base and outfield eligible, 13% rostered, batting .345 with a 1,091 OPS, 3 home runs, and 1 stolen base in the last 2 weeks. And your boy, Nacho Alvarez, Ozzie Albies' replacement, 7% rostered. Went 0 for 4 in his major league debut, but before his call-up, he was batting .336 with a 1,007 OPS and 7 home runs in 28 games in AAA. So, John, go ahead and rank these players on how you would prefer to pick them up.
Gavin Lux stays in the bottom. So let's go bottom to top again. I'll go Gavin Lux. I actually do like Zach Neto a bit. I just think he's still a bit young, but 257, 13 homers, 45 RBI, and 17 stolen bases is still a nice year. So really the only guy on this list I really don't care for is Gavin Lux. I think anyone from there, these are legit guys who can be, more than a fill-in. They can actually help your fantasy team, whether you have an injury in that position or not. So after Zach Neto, I'll go Schumann. We already hit on Schumann, so I'll leave that alone for now. Number 3, I'll go with I don't want to say my boy because he's a Brave, but how can you not love the name Nacho? Come on, man.
Well, you know why they call him that, right?
I don't know, because he's my boy Nachos.
So his real name is Ignacio. So just like Nacho Libre, they call him Nacho because of the movie.
Ha ha ha. I did Nacho know that. So I like Nacho just based on his minor league stats. I think he probably offers the most potential all around. So replacing Ozzie Albies is not going to be easy, but he was hitting 293, 7 homers, and 39 RBI in the minors. He is 1 for 9 to start his MLB career so far, but he's definitely got potential. And then number two and number 1 are tied. So I'll go 1A, 1B. Sorry. I'll say 1A. I like Xavier Edwards, owned in 14% of leagues. I see Xavier Edwards as a younger version of like a Tim Anderson or a Luis Arias. He's currently batting 365, no homers, no pop. He's got 11 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, but he's batting 365 on the year, 21 games in the year. But 365 is nothing to cry about there. He's at an 864 OPS. He doesn't strike out much. He does take his fair share of walks. Similar sample size last year. So in 84 plate appearances last year, he hit 295. So this year, 365. I think it was also the same amount of games too, around that 2022 mark. He's got last year he only had 3 RBIs too, so might get a few doubles and a couple extra base hits here and there, but just expect more consistent singles than anything, like a Luis Arias guy. And then my 1B, someone who I think Xavier Edwards has more potential just because he's a little bit more of an unknown. Jose Iglesias, he's hot as hell right now, man. I'm cautious just because we know what he is, but he is a 281 career hitter. He doesn't do anything great. He's just been pretty consistent throughout his career. Career 281 hitter, 322 OBP, 709 OPS. This year, though, with 36 games under his belt and 105 plate appearances, he's hitting an absurd 381, which is 100 points higher than his career average. He's got 3 homers, 17 RBIs, so he's also giving you a little bit of pop here and there, too. Same reason I like McNeil a little bit, and same reason I like the Mets a little bit, and only for the sake of the wild card. Obviously, don't like the Mets, but I think he's a guy that they're just kind of riding until the spark goes out. So I would do the same thing in fantasy. Between him and Xavier Edwards, I think you can get a little bit something there, but Jose Iglesias is putting up legit numbers right now.
All right, and that concludes our injury report. Now, moving on to trade targets. So, couple players, 1 or 2 players that you are actually looking to potentially trade for in fantasy.
Yeah. So you knew I had to go into a mini Phillies tangent here, but the main player that I would look at for real baseball and fantasy purposes too, that could really make a difference for you is going to be Garrett Crochet. I think too many people are talking about the possibility of Skubal getting moved and not so much Garrett Crochet. And I think Skubal's in a league of his own, really. I think he's a top 5 pitcher in baseball, but Crochet's got potential to be top 10 or 15. So Crochet's been in the league since 2020. He missed all of 2022 after Tommy John surgery. He's really come into his own this year and has shown serious signs of being an ace. So I think once Crochet gets out of Chicago, assuming that they trade him at the peak of his value right now, it could be a completely different story for him. So this year he's produced a 6-7 record. He's got a 3.07 ERA. Assuming he does get traded to a contender, the reason I like him so much is just because, let's say he's traded to, I don't know, the Phillies
Or the
Dodgers, Yankees, whatever, Orioles. He's probably not their ace. And if this guy's a 2 or a 3 going up against other guys 2 or 3 without the pressure, rejuvenated sense of I'm happy to be here instead of miserable in Chicago.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about a completely different story. And this is a guy who 98th percentile in baseball in K percentage, 98th percentile in expected ERA with a 2.45 to his actual 3.07. He's had 3 stinkers this year. They all came in April. He gave up 5 earned runs to the Reds, 7 earned runs to the Phils, and 5 earned runs to the Twins. Since then, he's pitched in at least 5 innings in every start, hasn't given up more than 2 runs, and his ERA is still a 3.07. So without those 3 starts, it's a completely different story. Even so, Garrett Crochet is just a stud.
He's a big freaking dude also, man. He's 6'6", 245 pounds. So he's the type of guy that I like to target early. Once I see a guy with that type of size on him, a young guy with that type of size, like those are the ones that can carry a lot of, a bigger load. They can usually stay healthy, throughout their careers usually, and in regular seasons. Like that's what I'm looking for in potential prospects, and the guys that kind of scare me have like the Spencer Strider type of body style where they're 5'9", 165 pounds, that throw 100 miles an hour. The body is just so small that I don't really think that they can handle that workload, which is why Spencer Strider is on his second Tommy John surgery, and which is why I was way more excited about Paul Skeens than I was about Spencer Strider. I think Crochet has a little bit of Paul Skeens-esque to him as well. The Pirates are not playoff contenders, just like the White Sox are not playoff contenders, but the Pirates have the backbone to potentially build on guys like O'Neal Cruz and Paul Skeens and Brian Reynolds, who's also very young, versus the White Sox that have some older talent like Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez, some other players that have potential of being good, but Crochet is really the only like really bright spot they have when it comes to young pitching. So I think that they could get a huge haul for that. And fantasy wise, I think his price is just going to be a little bit too high. So I wouldn't even be offering anything for Crochet for the rest of the season.
I disagree. And I say that for how we kind of started this off is that I think he's going to have some kind of innings restriction, give or take, or some kind, maybe miss a start here or there. But he just reminds me so much of the situation in general. Granted that he's a lefty, but just of a Chris Sale, where not even, I'll bring up a beautiful memory for you when Chris Sale shut out the World Series. And I think that's kind of how, if a team like the Dodgers or Phillies traded for him, this is a guy who could just end up closing a couple games here and there if he skips a start. And the Phillies need a closer. Phillies could benefit from a starting pitcher, but so could a lot of teams. And I think he has that potential that he could just be a huge postseason weapon to pitch an inning or two to close out a game.
I think the smart thing to do if he does go to a contender is maybe throw him in either in the bullpen or have him start games, but have, a piggyback after the fifth inning. Don't let him go longer than the fifth inning, preserve his innings. And I think that the Dodgers are actually the ones that could potentially make that happen because they have the arms to command a 6-man rotation, and maybe he won't even have to be limited too much on that if he's pitching every 6 days instead of every 5 days, versus a lot of other teams that don't really have the options that the Dodgers do. And that is not a homer take. That is just a smart baseball take, in my opinion. All right. So moving on to my targets, unless you had another one. Garrett Crochet was one. You have another target that you're thinking about?
I do. You want to do yours? You want me to go back to back?
Go ahead.
Brent Rooker. Love me some Brent Rooker. Brent Rooker, hate to say it, another guy that would look great in a Phillies uniform, of course, but would look great in a lot of uniforms. So I do think the Phillies are going to probably target a closer more like a Mason Miller and leave Brent Rooker for another team to get. But I do think Brent Rooker will be moved. I think based on his stats, so this year he's currently got a 290 average with 23 homers and 69 RBIs on the Athletics, and they can get a pretty damn good haul. I mean, this guy is a top 10 outfielder in baseball right now. Not saying in general that, throughout his career he has been, because he's bounced around, but I think in real baseball and fantasy baseball, this is a guy who can get for probably a pretty good pitcher or two decent bats, but a guy who's still affordable and putting up crazy good numbers, and is probably going to get traded to a contender with a lot more RBI opportunities. And the team that trades for him is probably not putting him into a pitcher's park. He would look so good in Philadelphia, but his defense is not good enough. Probably not New York. I don't know. Where could you see Rooker going?
Definitely not the Orioles. They have way too many outfielders. I could potentially see him in
Maybe
a Phillies uniform. I think I could see him most in a Phillies uniform, just because I feel like the Phillies don't prioritize defense. They prioritize offense. Just like they want to prioritize pitching and offense, which is why we saw guys like Kyle Schwarber playing left field for a season or two, and we saw Rhys Hoskins at first base, who was one of the worst defenders at first base. They weren't relying on his defense at first base. They wanted his 35 home runs on the other side of the plate. So I think that that's the direction of the Phillies, which is another reason why they put Schwarber in the leadoff position, because they want the power at the beginning of the lineup. And Brent Rooker would hit a crap load of home runs in Philadelphia. So I could actually see that happening, especially with, guys like Brandon Marsh, who's okay. He's become a fan favorite, but it's mostly because of, the stringy wet hair and the big sunglasses and stuff that he wears. I feel like the kids really dig that. He has swag, and maybe Brent Rooker has swag too. We just don't know because he's on the A's, and the A's just don't really get a lot of attention, and lately they have been, just because of the way that they've been swinging the bat lately. But I think Brent Rooker would actually fit very well in the Phillies clubhouse.
This is a horrible comparison, but if you look at Mark McGwire videos on the A's and look what Brent Rooker just did against the Phillies last week in 2 weeks ago in Philadelphia, he's got some serious power, man.
You mean when they scored 18 runs against the Phillies?
Shut up. Shut up. End the show.
All right. So I am targeting Pete Alonso and Austin Riley. Huge upside. Neither have done much this season to be like super excited about, but that's why they're considered low options. And I actually just pulled off a trade. I traded Ronaldo Lopez, who was on our sell high candidate list a few weeks ago. I sold Ronaldo Lopez for Pete Alonso in a categories league. So I'm really hoping that Pete Alonso turns things around and hits 50 home runs by the end of the season. Seth Lugo is another name that I've been throwing around in trades. I feel like neither Seth Lugo or Ronaldo Lopez have much upside, and they've been playing so good this season. ERAs are just incredible. I think ranking wise, like they're both like top 10 starting pitchers right now, and you could go out and get a potential game changer by selling these guys before they fall apart. Ronaldo Lopez and Seth Lugo are both on the wrong side of 30, and I don't see them maintaining this type of production for the rest of the season. So go after guys like Pete Alonso, go after guys like Austin Riley that have just been kind of like mediocre this season so far. And Austin Riley just came back from the paternity list, and he has a new baby that he's playing for. So that gives a little motivation right there. Also. Dad strength, exactly. And Pete Alonso going for that big contract. I think he has like if
he gets a big contract, I will run around the neighborhood naked. He does not deserve anything more than a 3-year 75.
Let's see. I'm going to look up Pete Alonso's stats right now. He has 20 home runs on the season, which every year you can basically count on Pete Alonso hitting at least 50 home runs for the season. And this is his 20th home run after the All-Star break. So that's a little off for him. So something's been off for the first half, but I feel like he's the type of guy that's going to turn things around. He's a boomer bust. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits 30 home runs the rest of the way, because this is the guy that can do it. He was the favorite to win the home run derby, and he didn't because he had a crappy pitcher, unfortunately, that just couldn't find the strike zone, but Pete Alonso has one of the highest home run potentials in the National League. I think it's not really comparable to Aaron Judge, because Aaron Judge is just so smooth with his swing, and he doesn't really have to try to hit the ball that hard because his body just kind of like takes over, because the dude weighs 300 pounds. But Pete Alonso, he's just so like big, he's just a big dude. That's why they call him the polar bear, right? Like he doesn't really have to try too hard either. He just puts the bat out there, puts a little oomph in it, and it's just gone. Imagine him in like a Phillies uniform, which is probably not going to happen because the Mets already said that they are not in trades right now. They are thinking about potentially giving an extension to Pete Alonso, but Yeah, that'd be awesome, dude. I'd like to see him in a Mets uniform for the rest of his career.
I'm
Hopefully the
being
Mets.
sarcastic. I'm not a Pete Alonso guy, no matter what team he plays for.
I didn't used to be, but seeing the home run potential, like seeing the home runs that he just hits year after year after year, like that's the type of players that the Yankees go after, and the Mets on the other side of New York, are they going into this also like thinking like, well, we need a slugger, so let's go ahead and just extend Pete Alonso? He's going to be expensive. He's going to be expensive because he's a name out there that a lot of people know, and in a sea of first basemen that don't really hit the ball that hard, like how many first basemen are like how first basemen used to be, where they're just like all power. There's not really that many anymore. There's probably like 6, something like that.
Yeah, give or take.
So,
I mean, the reason I throw out, well, and again, whole different tangent. We can go on and on, but Pete Alonso, a 3-year, 25. I mean, Rhys Hoskins just signed last year for 234, so 17 a year for 2 years. I don't think Pete Alonso's that much better than Rhys Hoskins, truthfully.
defensively, he's definitely better. Pete Alonso actually has some pretty good defense. He doesn't get enough credit for that, but
I'm talking fantasy.
Power-wise, I see Pete Alonso having at least 15 to 20 home runs more than Rhys Hoskins every single year. Rhys Hoskins, I think he's going to cap out at 30 home runs versus Pete Alonso that could probably hit 60.
Not anymore. I'm so out on Pete Alonso. I'm so done.
I think you're just a homer and you're just being a Mets hater.
No. I promise I'll always. I just told you I'd pick up Jeff McNeil.
Yeah, I guess.
That bum.
All right, that was enough of trade targets. Now let's move on to this new segment that I have called I Don't Believe What I Just Saw.
I don't believe what I just saw.
All right, so last year we saw Ronald Acuna Jr. break a crazy record. First player to ever hit 40 home runs, 70 bases in a single season. Now, it's almost impossible for Elly De La Cruz to hit 40 home runs this season, but yesterday, Elly De La Cruz stole his 50th and 51st base of the year. De La Cruz is on a 90 stolen base pace. I'm going to put this up right here. Bam, right there. All right, so 51 stolen bases, on pace for 90 plus. Last time that happened was Ricky Henderson back in 1988. 130 is the record by Ricky Henderson back in 1982.
That's so gross.
That's crazy, right?
God.
And to think it was like 40 years ago. But if there is any player that can break Ricky Henderson's record, I think that is Elly De La Cruz. Henderson recorded a 60-yard dash in 6.4 seconds. Elly De La Cruz hasn't recorded a 60-yard dash yet, but after calculating his feet per second, his 60-yard dash would have been 5.98 seconds, almost a half second faster than Ricky Henderson. It's going to happen, man. Elly De La Cruz will beat the single season stolen base record. He's only 22, dude. He's got a lot of time to grow into his man body. I have no doubt that his sprint speed will increase as he gets a little bit older. I'm all in on Elly De La Cruz when it comes to stolen bases. There's some other things in his game that I don't really care to.
He just cuts down on the strikeouts. He's a top 5 baseball player.
The strikeouts, and the reason why he's able to steal as many bases as he does is because he gets on first base a lot. And the reason he gets on first base a lot is because he hits the ball on the ground over 50% of the time. More than half of his batted balls are on the ground. And because he's hitting the ball 148 miles an hour, when it's hit on the ground, it doesn't matter because it's going to sneak through and get to the outfield. He only gets to first base, but it's fine because he's going to steal second, and then he's going to steal third, and then he's going to steal home. We saw that from Ricky Henderson. We saw that from Elly De La Cruz. There's other guys that have been clocked to be faster than Elly De La Cruz, like Trey Turner, like Bobby Witt Jr., but it's different. It's not just about sprint speed, it's about reaction time. It's about, the strides that they take. And I think Elly De La Cruz has that potential to surpass Ricky Henderson in 130 stolen bases.
Be fun to see, man. I think that's aggressive, but damn, it'd be fun to watch. I just think in today's baseball, especially with superstars, I would consider him a borderline superstar. Mike Trout used to steal a ton of bases too, so maybe 130 is a bit aggressive, but could he hit 100? Maybe.
I don't know, man. He's on pace for 90 plus this season. So, and this is in his age 22 season. He's not even in his man body yet. Imagine when he gets his man body, like 26 years old, dude, the potential is freaking crazy. All right, man, your turn. Who is your
I don't believe what I just saw.
or what is your I don't believe what I just saw moment?
I actually sent you this tweet yesterday, so I'll stick with it. And that's Yoan Moncada's rehab halted due to anticipated soreness. What the hell is that?
Dude, when you texted me that, I literally thought this was just like a spoof,
I thought it was a joke. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%. I think it's just a very poorly worded tweet or however the team put it out there, but the White Sox don't do anything great. So why would this be any different? My first thought, I have to say, you ever see the video or it was like a meme or whatever of the dad that comes home, his son's throwing a party and the son goes, "Daddy, chill." And the dad basically responds with, "What in the hell is that?" And that was my very first reaction to this tweet. So looking into a bit more, I know Moncada's been on the shelf for a while. This was also a guy who was a top prospect in baseball. The better way to put it is we just don't want to rush this guy back. He's always been injured. And so I think that would just be a better way to put it. He's currently, last I looked, he was 8 for 15 in the Arizona Complex League. So he's doing great. I think it's just they're saying anticipated soreness. They know this guy doesn't recover quickly or well. So they could have just said, we're not going to rush this guy back, and saying, we know this MF's going to be sore as hell.
And I don't get it because it's just Yoan Moncada, like I understand, like you just said, he was a top prospect. And I remember because he was in fantasy drafts all over the place, oh, he's coming up, he's going to get the call. And it was fun, but then he came and not very exciting. He's had some moments where he was exciting, but we're
a long ways away from his 2019 season where he hit 315, 25 homers and 79 RBI. That's safe to say.
Most years he goes undrafted, and that's okay, because eventually someone will pick him up throughout the season because, their second baseman gets hurt or whatever. But most of the time, I think he's just going to stay, 15% rostered or so. I don't think he's anyone to be excited about, but that was a very funny message that you sent me. It actually did make me LOL in real life.
Anticipated soreness is a reason why I would call out from adult softball because I got to sell real estate instead. Like that's so funny. You're a Major League Baseball player getting paid. I mean, he's a huge contract too.
Yeah, I think they gave him that big contract before he even made his Major League debut, which seems to be the trend. A lot of these guys, a lot of teams want to try to lock in their potential superstars before they break out, so that way they don't have to pay them $50 million a year.
Yeah, he signed a 5-year $70. So he's currently earning $24 million this year just to anticipate some soreness.
To sit and watch some baseball and watch his team lose without him.
That's a sick job, man.
Yeah, I'd love that job. Sit back and relax and watch. All right, guys, we're an hour and 18 minutes in. If you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you guys next week.